Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode 114. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us here this Monday. And Dave, I'm going to skip just the traditional kind of banter of an intro. Really no easy way to have this conversation. It's been a couple of days at least for us to process and talk about it. But Saturday morning, Steelers quarterback Dwayne Haskins was killed in a vehicle accident after being hit by a dump truck, reportedly on a Florida highway. Still don't have a ton of details as to what exactly happened, but just shocking, terrible, and tragic news. And so we've seen the outpouring of support and remembrance and memories of Dwayne Haskins from friends and teammates and coaches, and just unbelievable news that obviously is going to dominate our conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. Super tragic. I mean, we went into the weekend talking about all those Steelers players that looking forward to kind of identifying which ones, you know, we could maybe spot on social media and all. And several of them we had already kind of had identified as being down there with Mitch Trubisky down in Boca Raton, Florida. And obviously Dwayne Haskins, I think we had known way ahead that he was going to, you know, had the invite and more than likely be one of the several that attended that kind of makeshift practice, if you will. And very positive kind of feeling as I mean, take your you know, blogger kind of hat off just as a fan aspect to think, all right, you know, these guys are getting together down there in South Florida, new quarterback getting together with one or two maybe of the other quarterbacks and a lot of the skill position guys and guys like Najee and Chase Claypool and others down there. You're thinking, boy, this is going to be a very productive and, you know, positive weekend for those group of guys to go down there, and Masters weekend, and, you know, just all the positivity kind of goes with kind of thinking ahead of, boy, spring is sprung type of feeling with the draft right around the corner, and then, you know, obviously wake up on Saturday to the tragedy, you know, that had happened with Haskins there. And, you know, you got to think a lot of those guys, a lot of those players still probably going through some, you know, hard issues of having to process all of this.
Sure.
Haskins only 24 years of age, fixing to turn 25, and you know, there's a little bit of video that came out, I think, on that on that Friday of, you know, the guys just, you know, seeming to having good fellowship down there, and, you know, getting some practice time in, and, you know, you turn around first thing Saturday morning and, you know, just, you know, how quickly life, you know, can change, and course of events can happen there. So certainly is tragic, and, you know, obviously hearts go out to, you know, Haskins family and just, you know, everybody that knew and loved him and was close around him, and obviously the Steelers players that were down there fellowshipping with him as well, because I'm sure it's still pretty hard for a lot of them to process right now at this point.
Absolutely. I'll read a partial excerpt of a statement here from Mike Tomlin, released in the hours after Haskins' death was reported, saying, quote, "I'm devastated and at a loss for words with the unfortunate passing of Dwayne Haskins. He quickly became part of our Steelers family upon his arrival in Pittsburgh and was one of our hardest workers, both on the field and in our community. Dwayne was a great teammate, but even more so a tremendous friend to so many. I am truly heartbroken." So there's a statement there from Mike Tomlin, similar sentiments from other coaches, including quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan, running backs coach Eddie Faulkner, of course, teammates like Mitch Trubisky, Ben Roethlisberger, and his wife Ashley released a statement as well later on Saturday night. So, yeah, 24 years old. It's just really hard to believe. And the thing I can't get out of my head, Dave, is just how hard this guy was working to, you know, rebuild his career in Pittsburgh. And that's why he was in Florida in the first place, as you mentioned, out there with teammates to train and to work out in the bond and those kinds of things. And so Pittsburgh was such a perfect environment for Haskins just to to sit and learn and get better and come in and work, which he was doing. There was no pressure of being the former first round pick like he was in Washington. And so just really was excited to think about getting to see him, to have the opportunity to work and get better and improve his game. And certainly was going to be a tough battle to make the roster as it was, last year. But, now we'll never get that opportunity to see that guy grow. And so that's just, that one hurts a lot.
Yeah, I think most of the reports that had come out over the weekend indicate that he had pretty much remained in Pittsburgh most of the time, getting his work in, and obviously looking ahead to potentially battling for a roster spot. And obviously that probably wasn't a given, but things happen, right? As I always like to say, these things end up having a way of working themselves out when you get into some of those kind of, what's going to happen here? Where you have 4 guys and 3 spots there, and could he have made enough impression that during training camp and the preseason that even say he didn't remain with the Steelers, maybe he catches on with another team there. And I think you kind of said it best, and really going way back to when he was initially added. It was just all the pressure of having to carry an entire franchise on his back was gone. He could be more of himself, and I went back and kind of watched video, I think from last summer there, where it felt like he felt more comfortable with the ability of being himself and letting people see kind of who he was, because I imagine it was pretty tough coming out of obviously a big program as Ohio State, coming out a year early, and then being thrust into being the face of the Washington franchise, and then obviously starting right out of the chute, all the pressures that come along with that, and still being just a kid, on top of it there, had to be tough on him. And, when, Mike Tomlin, obviously, I think didn't Mike Tomlin and Haskins share an agent on top of it. I think that played a little bit of a part in Haskins landing in Pittsburgh, and what a great place for him, after coming out of what he came out of in Washington there, and obviously did enough to stay on the team last season and be the number 3. And once again, with the prospects of obviously Ben Roethlisberger retiring, and not sure what's going to happen in the draft, and not knowing, at least knowing that Mitch Trubisky was in town, but still willing to compete and battle. And that was going to be something to really look forward to, was that battle per se between Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins, assuming this team drafts a quarterback, early in this draft. So now we won't know. So just a sad situation, all the way around, tragic, and just not the kind of thing that you wake up on a April Saturday morning, expecting to kind of read.
Some more quotes here from Steelers teammates. One from Mitch Trubisky said on Instagram, I believe it was, quote, "I'm absolutely heartbroken. Dwayne has made such an impact on me in a short period of time. He welcomed me to his team with his big heart, infectious smile. I am so thankful to have known Dwayne. All my love and prayers are with his family." Ben saying similar things, Ben and his wife Ashley. And so, all I think, I just wanted to see the guy get a second chance in Pittsburgh and get a chance to rebuild his career, and wherever that led, who knows, but just have that opportunity. And I know that he was working hard at that. And I understand, Washington, people question work ethic and stuff like that. Who knows what's fact and what's fiction? I know that was even questioned in Pittsburgh, but whenever I watched him at camp this year, Dave, up close and personal, every single day at Heinz Field this summer, I mean, this guy was working really hard and doing the right things and doing the little things, and really impressed early on in training camp as well. Like, he was getting all that buzz for just the great physical talent he had, the big arm, more mobility than I thought. But what's more important is just Dwayne Haskins, the person. And every comment you hear from a friend or coach or teammate or whoever that knew him, just talked about his kindness, his positivity, his optimism. And this is a guy that really had a bright future on and off the field. And that's been taken away at 24. And that just breaks your heart.
Yeah, not only do you think about what maybe awaited him in his football career, but how many lives could he have changed, after his
Mm,
football career? Because I mean, it's still a long, long life ahead of him at the age of 24, and where would his life's work have taken him? And even after he could have potentially still hung around the league for another 7, 8, 9, 10 years, depending on how this offseason went,
hmm
on top of it. So, you think about more about these players initially as athletes and quarterbacks of your favorite team and all like that. But then you look at, what a lot of these guys go on to do look at what Robert Golden's doing right now,
Yeah.
doing schools and stuff like, I think he has a school opened up now and those kind of things. So, a life is more than a life just as a football player. There's life after that as well too, and just tragically cut short.
Yeah, really is. And so again, the details on what happened, I know there are some reports and speculation. I don't really want to delve into too many of those things right now. Kind of wait for official word from investigators, and I much prefer to celebrate, remember his life, than try to explain his death. And so I know a lot of people are grieving, and that's certainly appropriate. I know it's a really tough day, and you've seen some of the clips under Chase Claypool that are really emotional video that he tweeted out, and I can only imagine what he and everyone else that knew him is going through, especially the guys that were in Florida and were just talking with him, just working with him. So certainly our hearts go out to those guys as they deal with another tragedy. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh's experienced so many of those, whether that's Tonchilkin, Daryl Drake, Stephon Tuitt's brother, Mr. Rooney, Dan Rooney several years back. It's been a lot of tragedy. One tragedy is too much, but Pittsburgh's really been going through it for several years now.
Yeah, you think about Mitch Trubisky, and I kind of wrote about that after he, the short kind of quote that he released on Instagram. I think later on Saturday there. I mean, this is a guy that was trying to do the right thing and inviting all these guys down to Florida to work together and have some fellowship and all like that. And I can't imagine maybe some of the initial kind of guilt maybe that he's feeling. And although I mean you see it firsthand, and props to Chase Claypool for releasing
Hmm
a video like that. People see these players as outside of the a lot of people don't think that these kids have feeling, and they're just kids.
Yeah.
They're not much younger than you. A lot of them right now, and they haven't been through a lot of them. This will be their first guy, even though a lot of them probably have gone through suffering, tragic deaths and losses personally. Some of them probably haven't to the degree and magnitude of a good teammate, friend here one day and then gone, especially in the manner that he was taken on Saturday there. So these kids have feelings too, and it was very, very raw what Chase Claypool obviously put out there on his social media, on I think Saturday night, early Sunday there. So yeah, you just got to feel for him, because you go down there thinking this is going to be a very positive kind of experience down there in Florida. Going to get a lot of
hmm
work done on top of it, and you don't even make it to Sunday, and the whole thing has become really a tragedy.
Yeah, it's still hard to even process, to be honest. I'll read a part of what Ben and Ashley Roethlisberger had sent out on social media Saturday night. Quote, I only had the privilege to know D. Hask for a short time, but in that time, I got to meet a young man that didn't seem to ever have a bad day. He came to work every day with a smile on his face and energy and love in his heart. I really enjoyed his passion and love for the game and wanting to learn and be the best. His smile and zeal for life will be missed. So, yeah, it is heartening to see some of those really positive stories and memories and moments, and even the video I think of Dwayne as a little kid saying I want to go to Ohio State, and of course goes to Ohio State and wins a Rose Bowl, those 50 touchdowns, just had a great season there, I think back in 2018. So I don't know, Dave. This one's tough.
Yeah, gonna be tough for a lot of these guys to get past this, going on through to the off season, on into the OTA programs. At least the OTA programs are right around the corner, so a lot of these guys will be able to get back together with each other, early in the off season, and hopefully kind of work through it, if you will. And some of it's going to take some of them it's going to take more time than others. You just don't know how the human mind or how individuals are able to process things. Like, people grieve in different ways. Just look at Stephon Tuitt, the situation that happened with him, unfortunately, almost a year ago there. So time heals. Just time is different with different people on top of it there. So they do have a good coach, I think, and obviously a great coach in Mike Tomlin, that and I think a good support system as a organization overall to probably get these guys whatever they need as far as counseling. I would think the league would play into that as well, and hopefully a lot of these players take them up on it, because you can't keep a lot of this stuff bottled in, and a lot of them probably don't have people that they can turn to and really express their real feelings to. And they got some good leadership, even with Ben Roethlisberger now being retired. You got some very good team leaders on this team, and obviously in Cam Heyward, and just hopefully there's time now. They could use the rest of this time for what's left in the offseason to kind of to fully process this and get through it.
Right, because it will take time. That's really the only thing you can do. You want to talk it out and process it and try to grieve in the most appropriate ways possible. But time ultimately will be what you need just to try to get through this the best that you can. But a lot of heavy hearts in Steelers Nation and across the football community. Do want to certainly thank what the Pittsburgh Penguins have done with their moment of silence for Dwayne Haskins. It's been a lot of classy gestures from different teams and different outlets and individuals. So unfortunately, there's been some insensitive comments that I'm not really going to go through right now. I'm sure everyone has seen them. Most people have seen them. That's unfortunate. It's also expected, which is also unfortunate. But I just choose to focus on the positivity and all the very nice stories that have been shared about Dwayne Haskins. And there have been many, many great stories about Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I'll mention one of them by name. I'm not afraid to, because I just mentioned about how we just talked about his rankings and how I look forward to kind of him being a connected guy, and that's obviously someone like Gil Brandt, and to say what he said, on the radio, just merely I think hours after the passing of Dwayne Haskins. Really unfortunate, really sad. And now look, Gil's 90 years old, and there's that's not an excuse or anything, but man, just think before you speak on a lot. Look, a lot of us have stuck our foots in our collective mouths over the year, but it's sad that it went from almost immediately from talking about a tragedy like this to talking about how people are covering. The story ended up becoming, quickly morphing into how the tragedy was covered more so than the tragedy itself. And there's plenty of time to talk about how insensitive of comments there were. And look, I've definitely written tweets the wrong way, and I'm not a wordsmith, and those kind of things happen as well too. But and said some things that probably I wish I wouldn't have said in the past either. But I think the most important thing in this aspect is to keep the focus now on the unfortunate and tragic passing, and more on highlighting Dwayne Haskins and his life. And there's plenty of time afterward to talk about how things maybe weren't handled by other individuals, specifically in the media, when it came to covering that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I don't mean to minimize those comments or shy away from those comments. I thought what Gil Brandt said was reprehensible, but I just wanted to focus on the life of Dwayne Haskins, because that to me was just the most important part of it all. But Some comments also from Josh Dobbs, and he was on Sirius this weekend. Originally scheduled to talk about his signing with the Cleveland Browns on a 1-year deal, but also, of course, was asked about his experience and friendship with Dwayne Haskins, and revealed that actually Dobbs, while in college at Tennessee, served as Haskins' counselor when Haskins was in high school at Elite 11, one of the big high school programs. And so he's known Haskins for quite some time. When Haskins originally committed to Maryland and decommitted and ended up going to Ohio State. So that's a guy that knows Haskins better than maybe even most of his Steelers teammates did. And so I'm sure he's greatly affected by Haskins' death.
Well, what a great kid that kid is.
Yeah.
Just every time he talks to, Dobbs, and, at some point his football career is going to come to an end, but that guy's a rocket scientist. I mean,
just the maturity he shows.
He really is. And, obviously things trending the way they were trending this offseason at the quarterback position, it became more and more evident that, Josh Dobbs probably wasn't going to be back with the Steelers this offseason. And, you hate to see him, ultimately sign with your one of your rivals with the Cleveland Browns, but it's a business, and he talked about looking forward to being in that room and all like that. But I thought some of the things that he said about Dwayne Haskins were great, and he reemphasized that Ben Roethlisberger said it best when he said that Dwayne can throw a football through a car wash and the football not get wet. So, but if there was a teammate maybe that you could pick to maybe give a eulogy for Dwayne Haskins, Josh Dobbs would probably be a good choice for that, because as you mentioned, he has known him for quite some time, going back to what he said. He was a sponsor, right? From all the way counselor sponsor going back to the Elite 11 days when Haskins was still in high school and Dobbs was still in college there. So very uplifting words from Joshua Dobbs, and a tip of cap to him.
I'll just read a quick quote from what Dobbs said in part about Haskins in that Sirius interview. Quote, "He always had a smile on his face. He always was positive around his teammates, hyping them up and really wanting to see everyone else succeed around him, not only other players, but other quarterbacks. I thought that was what impressed me so much. The quarterback world, obviously only one person plays, but his energy, he always wanted to see other people succeed." So don't really know where to go from here, Dave. I'm sure the team's trying to figure that out as well on an emotional, personal level. But yeah, 24 years old. It just, as you always talk about, one day at a time. Tomorrow's never guaranteed, and unfortunately, the sports world is feeling that reality right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is just another, reminder, and we, depending on what circles you follow and interest you have in life, you see this almost on a daily basis of people taken, especially tragedy happen. You just don't know. You don't know what day might be your last day, or what hour might be your last hour. So it's just another reminder that you try your best to try to be your best every day. And the thing about him is, with Haskins, that and you did a great job in the post that you did, trying to work through just hours after the passing there of him. And the thing is, he was seemingly living life the way to the fullest. He was doing what he loved, playing football down in Florida, fellowshipping with the rest of his teammates, trying to get better, and in the process, hopefully making his teammates better, and really was, quote unquote, living his life to the fullest, I would think. At least to following his passion and all like that. And, that's one thing that I think you and I, at least I remind myself daily, man, to be so blessed to be able to, sit in my own office chair and watch and read and talk about football all day. Those kind of things. It's a passion. It's always been a passion of mine. And to be able to do it for a living, there's gentle reminders when tragedies, I think, happen like this, that no matter how long you live, life is too short anyway. Whether you live 90 years or whether you live 24 years. Life is just way, way too short when you look at it in a vacuum over, over time. So, yeah, it's just sad that we did not get to see a guy like Dwayne go, live a fuller life or a longer life, because he definitely lived a full life, just a longer one.
Yeah. All right, Dave. I know there's a couple other football things we want to get to today, and all of them feel pretty small compared to obviously the story of Dwayne Haskins, but we want this to be longer than a 25-minute episode of the podcast. But we'll take a short pause here, and then we'll come back and cover some of the other football stuff. And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, very difficult to try to transition, really impossible to transition from the Haskins news to the rest of the football world. And we'll keep the rest of this episode relatively short here, but a couple of football things that Dave and I wanted to go over today. ESPN's Jordan Reid came out with a full 7-round mock draft, all 262 picks mocked out by him. So he's stealing my thunder a little bit, Dave. That'll be something I'm going to try to do later this April. But for Pittsburgh at pick 20, interesting selection here. We've been so just normalized for quarterback, understandably so. But he has Pittsburgh taking Zion Johnson, the guard from Boston College, guy we talked about a ton early in the pre-draft process. Has kind of gotten quieter since because of the free agency moves of James Daniels and Mason Cole. But Zion Johnson, his pick at number 20.
Yeah, and I think before we talk about that, talk about the quarterbacks that he has going off the board before Zion. He's got Malik Willis going number 2 overall. He's got Malik Willis as his first quarterback off the board to the Detroit Lions at number 2 overall. He's got Kenny Pickett going to the Carolina Panthers at 6th overall. He has, let's see, where's the next quarterback on this list here?
I think those were the only 2 before Pittsburgh.
Okay, I think that was the only 2 there. And the easy, look, Zion Johnson, the guy that, as you mentioned, we talked early on in the process, the guy that really stood out or helped himself, I think, at the Senior Bowl by showing that position flexibility and all. But fast forward through the pro day process and all. Who do they have at Boston College? We know Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert weren't there, and that's key point number 1 overall there. Who did they have there?
I believe it was only Dave Pettit, one of their northern area scouts. I don't even think Pat Meyer was there, which is interesting because they do have a couple of good prospects in Lindstrom and Tyler Vrabel. It's Alex Lindstrom, Zion Johnson, Tyler Vrabel. And so I thought you would have maybe Pat Meyer there, not even just for Zion, but for the other guys as well. But I did not see him. So I think it was just an area scout there.
Right. So quite an interesting. I understand why. And look, I don't envy anybody that, I don't envy anybody that puts out a mock draft, and B, especially a mock draft where you try to mock if all 32 teams for 7 rounds or even 4 rounds, quite an undertaking. And a mock is a losing, as I've always said, that I found out early on in doing this whole blogging thing, is it's a losing proposition. You're not going to win. There is no winner in these, I don't think. Not even when you pick the first 3 picks correctly, like I did several. That's the closest you'll ever get to winning in this. And if you even get to that level, consider yourself lucky there. But I think you and I agree that just looking at this from 30,000 feet, knowing kind of what we know about the Steelers and their history, it would be quite a shock if Zion Johnson is the Steelers pick at 20 overall or in the first round period.
Yeah, just based on the history of the Tomlin Colbert pro day movement. Now, again, I think Zion's a great prospect, but just given how aggressive they were in free agency with your first round picks, even in Pittsburgh, these guys start, they play right away, except for maybe quarterbacks in those, occasional circumstances. And I'm not sure what the path would be to Zion to start out of the gate. Could potentially be a left guard, I suppose, but I think Pittsburgh's philosophy was let's go more aggressive in free agency to improve the offensive line, get immediate starters, and focus on the draft for other positions.
Do you think Zion gets pushed out of the first round?
That's possible. I guess he's still considered a bit of a fringe day one kind of guy, and as we know, guards tend to fall a little bit, but I think he's a first round talent. I'll answer it that way.
Okay. I mean, I definitely think he's one of those. I think he's definitely a second round talent. slightly undersized, I think, a little bit, but I mean, we've seen other interior players go in the first round like that, and if there's one to kind of bet on, when it comes to interior guys, he might be a guy to bet on, and especially the fact that he has that. Who was the Michigan player? Ruiz, wasn't it?
Cesar Ruiz from the Saints.
Ruiz, kind of a similar kind of back, positional story with him. I think overall, and what Ruiz a little even more undersized than Zion to some degree. So within that, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you could see Zion Johnson being a first round draft pick, definitely off the board, probably by the end of the second round there. But I would be a bit surprised if Zion is the Steelers pick at 20th overall.
I would be as well. I would categorize Johnson as probably a top 40 pick is the way I view that. If he doesn't go day one, he'll go one of the top picks there on day two. Second round in Reid's 7th-round mock draft is Phil Mathis, the interior defensive lineman from Alabama. So sticking with interior players on the other side of the football. Prototypical Steelers-looking lineman, 6'4", 310. He's got, I think, long arms overall. Played really well this past year, especially as a pass rusher. And will kind of be able to play up and down in the Steelers system.
Yeah, I don't think you can discount that overall. I mean, you would kind of wonder what this team might do at wide receiver or safety there. I think if I was to rank probability wise of a position this team went, assuming the team didn't go safety or wide receiver in the first round, I mean, defensive lineman certainly in the realm of possibility there. But I would lean more to maybe the potential of a safety or a wide receiver at 52 overall. More a little higher than a defensive lineman there. But depending on obviously what may or may not happen with Stephon Tuitt, and the Steelers were obviously all over that Alabama Pro Day. It's not unthinkable to think that Mathis could be the pick there.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit overall, and you can certainly argue it, but you see in his mock the very next pick is George Pickens. You can just say, yeah, maybe that guy would have made more sense at 52. And Pickens, not to derail too much, but Pickens is interesting because is he a first-round guy? The first-round talent's probably there, but the injury coupled with a depth of receiver class, is he going to fall into that mid-second round? I've kind of wrestled with that question quite a bit. I think you could argue and put him at pick 20 for Pittsburgh, and that would, I think, make some level of sense, but you could put him at pick 52, and that would also make a level of sense. So trying to find where that guy's going to go, given all the competing factors, is actually, to me, hard to do.
Yeah, and especially when it comes to the Steelers overall, because as we now look, he's right there on that threshold of, what do we say, 100 catches coming out of the Steelers. Quote on, I'm using air quotes here. You can't see it on the podcast machine, but generally like those players coming out of college with at least around 100 receptions. Now he's just short of that. So it wouldn't be stop the presses. The Steelers drafted a wide receiver, 8 catches, 7 catch, whatever it is, short of 100 there. But it is a minor kind of pushback with it. And then the other kind of minor pushback that we talked about is, his last season in college, he didn't play a lot. However, we have seen the Steelers team, be okay with players, not necessarily those that haven't that have missed the time that he missed in his final season. But I think every instant, what we might learn, especially when it comes to Pickens, if he does wind up being a Steelers selection, and if I would think that it would be more in the second round if they were to wind up with him. And I do like the chances of him falling there overall because of the depth of this wide receiver class. But one of the two key elements here when it comes to Pickens, I think, is the fact that he was able to get back on the field later in the season after the injury. Really shows a lot from the hearts and smarts, and just throw out the hearts and smarts, but just the ability wise, he showed that he's past that injury. I think enough in his limited playing time late last season there. And I think the Steelers recognized that. They obviously had brought the whole crew to the Georgia Pro Day. Obviously had their wide receivers coach working working Pickens out. You look at just Pickens' tape overall, the physicality, his willingness to block. Everything screams him being a Steelers selection, other than being short of the 100 catches and him missing most of his last season in college. But once again, I don't. It would be if you're stopping the presses, it's more like, man, this kid missed most of his last season in college, and the Steelers picked him. That's really the only thing I think when it comes to Pickens at this point that you would circle and say, oh, well, that's notable.
Right. And I understand he's falling short of the 100 catch metric threshold, but the fact that Pittsburgh sent Frisman Jackson to his pro day to work him out personally, they don't seem to mind that number too much. And obviously, had he played and been healthy, he would have hit that mark. So I'll give you a little preview. And we did derail this on Pickens. I apologize to Mathis because that's the pick there in round 2. But I am working on my What the Steelers Look For study in 2022 with all the pro days wrapped up. Just finished up receivers. That article should go up. Probably going to go up Wednesday morning. It's done. I just have to kind of go over a couple more things with it. Pickens missed in a couple of categories, the bench, the short shuttle 3-cone, only because he did not participate in those at any point in this process. Also missed on hand size. His hands are a little bit smaller. And so that's the one true category that he, quote unquote, tested in and missed was the hand size.
Okay, interesting there.
So Pickens will not be on that list. But later in the show, I'll tell you that there are 4 names who checked every box, 4 receivers who checked every single box throughout the combine. I'll tell you one of those names a little bit later in the show. But here, back to ESPN's mock draft at pick 84 overall in the 3rd round, going a pick that I know I've had my mock draft. Maybe you've had it as well. Someone else has had it. But Daniel Faalele, the offensive tackle from Minnesota, the big 387-pound right tackle, more of a raw guy, developmental guy, but a good athlete, former rugby player. Who's going to sit for a year, and that's going to be important because that is not a day 1 starter.
I think the most notable thing with him is who he had at his pro day, right?
Yeah, Pat Meyer was at that pro day as well, and so certainly some interest there as kind of that classic developmental tackle.
I mean, he's definitely going to have to drop some weight and all, and get leaner after the fact, right?
Yeah, I mean, he can still be 360 pounds, drop 25 pounds, and still be the biggest dude on the field by a wide margin. So, I mean, he moves well. It's not like he's a unathletic dude. He's really athletic and has gotten some of those Jordan Mailata comparisons, which I think are fairly valid. Probably going to play on the right side. Mailata's more of a left tackle, but like really unusually big dudes that can move. But his game is underdeveloped.
Might he fall even further than 3rd round?
No, I think it's at worst a late 3rd round guy, day 2 guy, because the talent and the upside there is so immense. You just don't see guys of that size with that movement ability at tackle or really any position come across too often. So I think he's going to be no worse than a day 2 guy.
And we agree that, and I don't think I'm, because I did a trade up and all like that, I didn't mock any offensive linemen to the Steelers there. But if they were to draft any offensive lineman this year, it would probably be a tackle, and it would probably be after the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking about that as well. And then obviously, Faalele checking those boxes being the 3rd round tackle. So interesting name. I thought that one made a lot of sense in this mock draft.
Okay.
Round 4 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tyquan Thornton, receiver from Baylor, blazed that. What do you run? 4.26, 4.28, I think was his official 40 time. Lanky dude, but big play threat. And Frisman Jackson coached him at Baylor. And so there's a connection there that's certainly worth mentioning.
Absolutely is. That'll make Dr. Mel and Josh Carney happy as well, too. Shrine Bowl kid. Look, there are instances, even on the TV tape that I have found with him, that you see that speed with him. And now he does have a little bit, the hands are a little bit on the smaller side, did have like a minor drop issue, I think, at times at Baylor. But when you talk about speed, you talk about guys being able to take the top off of coverage and deliver explosive plays that way. He certainly is it. And if you if they forego the wide receiver position early in this draft, and they did get into a round 4 situation here in needing one, that certainly would. I would think. Now I don't know where he goes, where he checking the boxes aspect of it. I would think that maybe other than hand size, he's pretty damn close to checking a lot of those boxes. I don't know what he did on bench. I can't remember what he did on bench and all. But I would think that he's one that's got at least several of those boxes checked.
Yeah, I can look at what he missed on. He missed on. Oh, I just lost my place here. He missed on the bench because he did not participate. So that's why you don't remember, because he did not do it. The short shuttle and 3-cone missed on that. I think he did test, but just missed, and then hand size as well. So he missed on a couple of categories.
Okay.
And then double dipping at receiver. I know you've advocated for that, and the question is, there's a need to do it, but do you have the draft capital to do it? Is kind of the question. But in this mock draft, they do double dip.
Okay.
Let's see. The next, I'll be honest, the rest of the draft, I'm not too familiar with the name, so I'm going to phone a friend here, and that friend is you, Dave Bryan, to maybe fill me in here. 6th round, no 5th round pick, but 6th round here, 208. Ellis Brooks, linebacker from Penn State. They were at Penn State's Pro Day for a couple of the guys there. It was Brian Flores, Jerry Olsavsky. So this one, I don't think we make doing this mock draft with our Pro Day tracker in mind, but it is kind of aligning here with Ellis Brooks. And I know Brandon Smith and some of those guys get most of the headlines, but Brooks, a late round candidate.
Yeah, I don't know much about his tape other than just maybe some highlights here and there. So I can't really speak on him.
Let me see if I can find just how he tested at his pro day. According to Draft Scout, he's 6'1", 226, so a bit undersized. Most linebackers are undersized these days. 4'7", 740, 33.5-inch vert, 9'2" broad. So average testing with average to below average size. But I'd have him turn on the tape on Ellis Brooks. 2 7th-round picks here. Another name here. I think it's Tua's brother or cousin, Myron Amosa, and I got to work on the pronunciations of this. But the edge from Notre Dame, I don't have a lot of information on him.
I don't either. That's kind of really a new name to me overall.
Yeah, as is the final pick in this draft, Kyler McMichael, a corner from North Carolina. So Jordan making us do our homework here on these last couple of picks. Let me just pull up what his stats were at least. And I know the article is up on Steelers Depot by the time you're listening to this, from Luke Campbell, who's kind of writing and covering this mock draft, and so love some more information on him. Michael, at least listed on Sports Reference, at 6', 210. First year was at Clemson, and then transferred to North Carolina. Intercepted just 1 pass last year, had 18 tackles. So it does not look like this guy played a lot of football last year.
Okay. Yeah. Once again, you get down. I don't envy these. Once again, I don't envy these guys doing these 7-rounders because you end up late. I props to him that he kind of kept it within. I don't know what is within reason on a mock draft.
Yeah, it's a 7-round mock draft.
But at least in the first couple picks there are names that obviously the Steelers have explored, I think, overall, and names that we've explored. And there's at least some conversation to be had, I think, at least when it comes to those first 4 selections that he had for the Steelers.
Yeah, so all in all.
And really, I guess 5, because you talk about Thornton too, right?
Right. I mean, no quarterback in this mock, really no safety either, right? Mm-hmm. Unless McMichael's I'm not sure if he's kind of a corner safety hybrid. So, I don't like to overanalyze these mocks too much because they're just a mock draft, but, some interesting direction there. That's why the double dipper receiver is tough to do, because you ignore things like safety, which are important needs.
And so our own Jonathan Heitrader put up a mock this morning, didn't he?
Yeah, we can run through that briefly as well. And by the way, speaking of other Depot contributors, on Wednesday's show, we've heard from a lot of the guys. Last week, we'll have Owen Straley and Devin Jackson on Wednesday's show to talk NFL draft as well. So looking forward to that. In Jonathan's mock draft, he has, as you did, a trade up here for Malik Willis from Liberty, moving up to the number 7 spot, which is with the New York Giants. And so a move up to get Malik Willis.
Yeah, I'm afraid to scroll down to the comments on this one already here. I mean, and you put up kind of the Steelers Depot quarterback rankings of all of us. this morning, kind of where I think where all of us have all these quarterbacks, and the consensus I think overall is that Malik Willis is number one, right?
Yeah, there were two consensuses of the mock of our rankings. One, Malik Willis is the top quarterback, and from number two, there is no consensus. Like, it was Malik Willis was generally agreed to be the top quarterback, and then from there it was a grab bag because everyone had. I mean, Desmond Ridder was ranked first to fifth. Sam Howell was ranked first to fifth. Matt Corral was second to fourth. Like, it is all over the map, and I show that in some of the tables in the article.
All right, so a lot of the variance points that out. So I think outside of Malik Willis being kind of the and it's probably not surprising at this point of the process of him being who we deem probably the consensus number one overall. It's not shocking with the attention that we think that the Steelers have paid to Malik throughout this process, what we think they like. The upside and all like that. So I'm not shocked that Jonathan went Willis overall first pick, and I'm not shocked that he worked out a trade to get up to number 7 to get him.
Yeah, and I did scroll at the comments in Jonathan's article just to kind of sum up how polarizing all drafts can be, but this year in particular. Back-to-back comments here. First sentence of one says, best mock draft that I've seen all year. The next comment says, worst mock draft that I've seen all year. So that really sums up just how people react to this stuff. It can be such a just polarizing, situation. But that's Malik Willis at number 7. At number 2, or at number 52, in round 2, George Pickens, the receiver in Jonathan's mock draft. So we just mentioned him and the Jordan Reid mock draft there. The Pickens would have made a lot more sense at 52. That's the direction Jonathan takes.
Look, and I think your first mock draft had Malik and then Pickens is at in the second round as well too. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be. I'm gonna go on record right now. I'm not going to be shocked at all if those two guys end up being the Steelers' first 2 picks. However you get them there, whether it be trade up, whatever, whether or not Pickens goes in the third, I don't know. But I could really see those 2 guys being the Steelers' first 2 picks from where we sit right now in this process.
Yeah, I could as well. Very similar to the Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth of last year, though obviously the projection of getting Willis a little tougher than the projection of getting Najee Harris last year. In round 3, Jonathan addressing kind of the last big need Pittsburgh has with a safety and Brian Cook from Cincinnati. So Tomlin at that pro day took Cook and others out to dinner. Good size, and Jonathan's a big fan of all those Bearcats, and so Brian Cook, the 3rd round pick at number 84.
Once again, it fits. It's hard to say. You can't sit here and say I guarantee that won't happen.
Right.
So kudos to him, and obviously where the Steelers are right now, the needed safety. You could see potentially something like that happening.
Yeah, you certainly could. In round 4, number 138, Rasheed Walker, the tackle from Penn State. I know I had him in my very first mock draft. A little position limited, and I was maybe a bit underwhelmed by the film, but there's a lot of raw talent there. He's a nasty, aggressive finisher. Just has to work on some technique and not oversetting and things like that. But kind of a good lump of clay that can now really truly be a backup now that Chukwuma Okorafor has re-upped with the team.
Look, if the team went in this fashion here, with a quarterback and a wide receiver, and then a safety with their first 3 picks. By the way, what did he give up to move up to
I don't think he specified.
Overall?
He still has all of his picks in this draft, so I'm going to assume it's a next year's first and
something else.
He says the Pittsburgh Steelers traded 2023 first round pick as well as, so he's basically giving up this year's first and next year's first to go up to number 7.
Okay, is that enough? I guess technically it might be enough. But anyway,
yeah, the math works because this is going off my trade scenario, but obviously those things aren't
sure
science. Okay, it could take more, probably would take a little bit more, but that's the way he's doing it in his mock draft.
And look, if they went, regardless of how you get there, if they went quarterback, wide receiver, and then safety with, let's say, the first 3 picks, however you get to those 3 picks, you would think 4th round opens them up to tackle, off the ball linebacker, what else? Outside linebacker,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the whole board really opens up at
Right.
that point.
I mean, it really moves in a lot of different directions. Now, I'm not as big on Rasheed Walker. I don't think, as most people, doesn't sound like you are as well. But as we just said when going over the ESPN mock draft, look, if they're going to draft an offensive lineman in this draft, it's probably going to be a tackle, and it's probably going to be outside the first 2 rounds there. So Penn State, obviously a larger program. They had people at Penn State. It's hard to sit here once again and say, I guarantee you that won't happen.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense there, as does his 6th round pick, number 208, Hassan Haskins, the running back from Michigan, at his pro day. Had a pro day dinner with Haskins, Tomlin did reportedly, and a former linebacker who plays running back with the size and tenacity, and to me, maybe the best pass protecting back in this draft. And so I think Haskins is a really strong fit here.
Him or Pierre Strong, I think, are right there when it comes to potential or being some of the better pass protecting running backs in this draft. Now Haskins is obviously a little bit bigger there. I don't think Haskins had the explosive play count, run count that a Pierre Strong did, and but he is more of the same type of back. As a Najee Harris, right? More of a power kind of, but he can catch football out of the backfield to some degree. There has a little bit of experience in there. It all depends on what flavor the Steelers are looking for in a back, if indeed they go a running back in this draft.
Yeah, well, their flavor is always the same. It feels like big dude, 6 foot, 220 plus, carry the load, good character, good all around back, and Haskins has some more lateral quickness. Like, he's not just a downhill plotter. Like, he's got not a ton of jukes, but like some of that lateral quickness, a jump cut ability, good special teamer. I know people will say get a good runner, and maybe you could argue that, but just from a what the Steelers look for standpoint, to me, Haskins is checking every single box.
All right. Did he have a little bit of a fumbling issue or no?
I don't remember. I don't think I had that in my report, but let me look at my report here and see what I kind of had as the big negatives. No, I don't have anything on fumbles, but I don't have his whole fumble data. So I mean, it could be potential. I'm not saying that it's not, but I didn't have that in my my report from what I observed.
Let's see here in some of the situational stuff here. Runs of 20 yards or more, had 6 last year at Michigan, had 3 the year before, so that's 9. Had 7 in 2019, so 7 and 3 is 10, and it's only 16 explosive runs of 20 yards or more during 3 seasons at Michigan there. So definitely not a guy that's going to run from a lot of people, but he is more of a power back and can, arm tackle break from what I remember on the tape on him and all like that. And I'm trying to look at his receiving snaps real quick there. 18 last season and 6, I think, the year before. So not a lot of experience catching the football at Michigan.
No, not at all. But he does catch it well whenever I did see him catch the football. So I think he can do it, just didn't do it a lot at Michigan. Let's see. Round 7 here with the 2 7-round picks. A new name here, Ali Fayed. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. The edge from Western.
And he stuck out at the Senior Bowl in some of those pass rushing drills, but he is more of an undersized. Who was the kid, Sutton Smith, a couple years ago from
Northern Illinois?
Yeah, Northern Illinois. And who was the other kid?
Feeney? Travis Feeney?
No, the Wisconsin kid that I talked about that ended up
Spiegel?
No, the undersized one. That was a pass rusher that is killing me.
From a couple years ago?
Yeah, from a couple years ago. Ended up being a late round kid, kind of a little bit undersized as a pass rusher.
Hold on, we'll figure this out because it's gonna eat both of us up, I'm sure. And this was like just a several.
There was a G in there, I think.
Okay.
Oh man, it's killing me.
Let's see. A G. Van Ginkel.
Yeah,
Andrew Van Ginkel.
There it is. Thank
there
you.
We
you. You saved me hours of frustration today.
That's really why I'm here. That's my number one job.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, because my psychiatrist isn't doing a good job at all.
Yeah, they might not know Andrew Van Ginkel as well as I do. So that's my specialty.
You know, I tweeted about Van Ginkel a couple times during that pre-draft process. Like,
they brought him in, didn't they?
Did they? I think they may have, but man, that guy just keeps showing up on tape for being undersized. Well, this kid, how to pronounce his name again? Ali
Fayad. I don't actually know the exact pronunciation here.
Man, he kept showing. He showed up definitely at the Senior Bowl in some of those drills.
I think Shrine Bowl.
Shrine Bowl. I'm sorry, Shrine Bowl. In some of those drills there, and you look at his tape, and he can bend the corner and all like that. It's just that he's oversized, and he's more of a speed rusher than everything else, and that's going to knock him down. But I kind of, if you could get him in his 6th or 7th round, as a developmental guy, and it doesn't look like he's got that much room to maybe put a little bulk on. But if he could, maybe there's something there. But I definitely remember when trimming up the kind of the all 22 from the Shrine Bowl that we got access to from the practices. Man, that guy continually was able to, has a nice spin move too. Beat some of those bigger name tackles that were at the Shrine Bowl as well too. So that's not a name that's foreign to me. Look, is he going to be much of anything at the NFL level? Odds would tell you probably not, but I mean, he is somebody that his tape has stuck out both at all-star practices and just at his all-22 tape in general.
And listen, Quincy Roche was not a big guy, and they drafted him, late day 3 last year. So
What did the measurements end up being on this kid? Do you have them?
It'd have to be at his pro day because he was not at the combine. So I can try to find out what his pro day measurements were, but I don't know them top of my head. Let me pull them up here from Draft Scout. And thank goodness Draft Scout's back because they were kind of gone for a little bit. 6'1" and 5/8", 248, 32-inch arms. The numbers, though, aren't looking great. 4.89 40, 7.31 3-cone, 4.57 short shuttle, 9.4 broad, 32.5-inch vert, 28 reps on the bar, but it is a 7th round pick, so there's some context there.
Yeah, his tape was better than his testing, I think.
Gotcha. Then the last pick here in Jonathan's mock draft, kind of a layup, a very common one with Connor Heyward at number 241, the H-back, fullback, whatever you want to call him, from Michigan State. Call him Cam's little brother.
Absolutely, and that it's going to be hard to stay away from that throughout this process. They just had Cam Heyward on NFL Total Access, I think, for a segment a couple of days ago there, and he obviously was asked to kind of scout his younger brother there. We've talked about Connor a lot through this process, and you could do worse for a 7th round or an undrafted free agent with Connor Heyward, especially with Derek Watt being in the final year of his contract. Connor Heyward could potentially be a guy that sticks around the NFL for several years because of kind of being that Swiss Army knife kind of player. And this is a guy too that a lot more productive. I mean, a lot more productive in college when it came to touching the football than a guy like Derek Watt was. So, obviously Derek Watt was a, victim of, how they wanted to use him there. But Michigan, handed Connor Heyward the football. They split him out, throwing the football. Boy, he's got some nice catches down the middle of the field. Some contested catches as well too. So you could probably do a little bit more than what you could do with most players that are 5'11" and 1/8 and 233 pounds. You could probably get that out of a guy like Connor Heyward more so than maybe any other player in the last, 3 or 4 drafts when it comes to measurements like that. And he should be an asset to you on special teams in all 4 phases. Definitely.
It sounds very cliche, but just a football player, just natural catcher of the football. I think moves well, tested pretty well, but I think even moves better on tape. Is versatile, will, bang around on special teams. Not a big guy, and it's going to be tough to play him as an inline tight end. He's just too too overpowered, too small, too that's not the length, but just a good guy to kind of fill out the bottom of your roster.
Yeah, look, I mean, everything other than end of the line tight end, this kid could probably do.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of boots and flats, throws in this offense led by Matt Canada. I think Heyward would fit that well. So a popular name you're going to see late in these Steeler mock drafts.
So kudos to Jonathan there. People probably don't know the name Ali Fayed out of Western Michigan, but if you have seen some of his tape and you do remember back to the East-West Shrine Bowl, then you probably more understand why he went that direction there. A lot of people, I don't know how much pushback there's going to be with Haskins in the 6th round. I can think of worse. I mean, I don't want this team to draft unless it's a guy like Pierre Strong, a guy that can home run. But he, as you mentioned, Haskins fits what the Steelers normally draft when it comes to that position there. And I don't know where most of the pushback is going to come from this mock draft, other than the fact that the Steelers traded up to get Malik Willis in this one.
Yeah, that's going to be, I'm sure, where most of the pushback comes from. But you can check that article and that mock draft out on Steelers Depot. Dave, I did mention my What the Steelers Look For study. They will begin on Wednesday, probably. I have receivers and corners done right now. For the receivers, a position this team is guaranteed to lock it in to draft this year. I have 4 receivers who check every single box. I'll tell you one of them, only because it's a pretty obvious name, Christian Watson from North Dakota State, with one of the best workouts we've ever seen. When you have a 10 RES score, you're probably going to hit every single box, and Watson easily cleared those thresholds.
And look, impressive kid. Tyler Wise has written a couple of articles and did the breakdown of him, and other than him being a small school kid, I mean, that's really the only kind of
and lack of catches.
And lack of catches, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, because he played in that run-oriented Bison offense.
Right.
So he checked every single box. There were 3 others who did. I'll be generous. I'll give you one more of the guys who were 1 box away. We like to talk about the guys who just missed in one category, which I think is a fair. We don't have to exclude them solely because of that. Which one? There's 3 of them. I'll give you Jalen Tolbert from Southern Alabama.
Wow.
Only missed in the. Let me check here. Only missed in the bench because he did not participate. And the bench is a pretty easy one to clear. You just need 10 reps. So I'm guessing he probably would have been in every box guy had he benched.
And that was a guy we haven't talked about in several weeks now, but I think talked a little bit about head of the Senior Bowl, right? And a guy that can stretch the field, a guy that made some tremendous, I think, highlight type catches there at what was it, South Alabama. And yeah, look, I'm not surprised he's on this list. A guy that delivered a lot of explosive plays as well too. So him, Watson, and you said Pickens missed a couple of boxes, right?
Yeah, mostly because he didn't test. He missed
Right.
in hand size and then just missed in bench and the agility drills because he did not do them. Agility drills is catching a lot of people this year because either they didn't test or they just didn't test well.
What do you think about the size aspect, the height aspect? Because I put up something on Twitter a couple of days ago, or I think a couple times now, under 5'10", under the official 5'10" mark.
Mhm.
And if you follow combine numbers, that'd be 5'1" aspect of it. Only twice have they drafted players under 5'10", right? And no, I'm not counting Dree Archer in this, because throughout the annals of time, I will always remember Dree Archer's being running back. But if you want to add Dree Archer in there, then 3 times. 2 of the players that we've talked about, DeMarcus Ayers, but wasn't he more of a Danny? Didn't he? In fact, when Ayers was drafted, didn't Danny Smith?
Yep.
Wasn't he the one that talked about him?
Yes, he's the one who did the pick press conference.
All right. So what does that tell you? And the other one being Antoine Randall L., who mostly played quarterback at Indiana coming out there. So, and if you want to add Dree Archer in there, have at it. Will there be a wide receiver under 5'10" in any of your mock drafts moving forward?
Well, there aren't a ton of them to choose from, I suppose. The
But
biggest
there
name
are
is
some
Sky
notable
Moore.
ones, though.
Yes, was a Sky Moore. Who else would be? I guess Calvin Austin.
Wendell Robinson.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of in that running back, receiver, versatile mold. But I don't know if there will be or not. But I will say my height threshold in the receiver, what they look for is 5'10 plus. Since
Right.
07, 13 of the 14 players, as you mentioned, have been 5'10 plus. So my height weight are 5'10, $180 as kind of the minimum threshold numbers.
Other than those, when it can't get, and unfortunately, a lot of these kids didn't do, or 3 cones. Is there one other like timed or measurable event like vertical, or where it just seems like a hugely common trait?
I would say actually Pittsburgh, and this might have changed a little bit in recent years, but Pittsburgh's athletic thresholds at receiver are pretty low. And I'll just leave it there because I've had them last year. 4.57 or better 40, 33-inch vert, 10-foot broad. Some of the agility drills kind of catch some of these guys, but overall, if you're a 4.57 receiver, 33-inch vert, 10 broad, that's an average-ish, testing numbers. And so the athleticism for Pittsburgh does not seem to be that critically important.
I wonder what an RAS kind of average would be.
I mean, we could plug those numbers in, I suppose, and see what they spit out. It would probably be about average, I would say. Probably
around 6.5 to 7, right?
Yeah, I would guess. I mean, it would depend on the exact height weight. But yeah, probably like it wouldn't be good. It would be like 6 to 7. That sounds about right.
Is it fair to say that maybe the narrative that the Steelers, for a while, it's like, oh, the Steelers, nobody drafts wide receivers like the Steelers do, right? How fair is that narrative?
I think it's largely accurate to look at the list of names. They've been pretty successful. I would also just say when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback throwing to those guys, it makes those receivers tend to look a bit better. But I think it's more than fair and accurate to say they've drafted receivers exceptionally well, especially day 2 guys. It's not like it's been a bunch of first-round picks. Day 2 has been their sweet spot.
Okay.
And then, of course, Antonio Brown being the diamond in the rough. But you'll see that full study out on we'll plan for Wednesday right now, and then cornerbacks a little bit later as well. 3 corners who checked every single box of what they look for.
One of them had to be and I haven't seen this, but one of them had to be my Tennessee kid, right?
I will tell you this. He missed in one category. He was one of 9 corners to miss in just one category.
Okay.
So he came very, very close. Alontae Taylor, so you're referring to?
Right.
Yeah, just missed in one category. So we'll allow it.
All right. Good. I always look forward to. I love the math that goes along with the draft. I love comparing the stats and the tape together and the Steelers' historical aspect of all this. So this is really getting into my even more favorite time of year when you start doing things like this.
Yeah, nothing I like better than 1:00 in the morning last night trying to look at RAS charts, try to see what box they checked or didn't check, and that was my research last night. So, Dave, you were pulling a lot of research as well with Pro Football Focus stats on quarterback play and numbers and throws outside the numbers and third down play and all the fun. You were having just a grand old time, I think, on Friday. So what did you find?
Yeah, then I was trying to go get the tape to match up with it on top of it, which wasn't easy to do with some of these. We talked a lot about in our roundtables about throws outside the numbers, right? Specifically kind of down the field type numbers. Now, PFF and specifically, I think we were kind of talking about Matt Corral starting off, that where are the kind of the deeper throws outside the numbers, and kind of got the results that I guess I thought I was kind of expecting there. He has the lowest amount of attempts of throws outside the numbers of 10 or plus yards down the field of the 5 quarterbacks: Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Sam Howell, Malik Willis, and Matt Corral. The fewest number of attempts, 123. Now, Malik Willis he only has 12 more than him, but Malik Willis only was a 2-year player, was Corral, I think, was a 3-year player there. The completion percentage, not awful when it, comparatively speaking, when you think of that Pickett and Ritter are on this list with lower completion percentages here, and the adjusted completion percentage is fine along those lines. Now, let the record show that Matt Corral had 7 interceptions on just 123 pass attempts. So that is a bit concerning, and a couple of those I think are pretty ugly if you go back and research them down there. So I more than anything, these numbers don't add a lot of context because they're numbers, but it kind of does back up. It gives some confirmation to what you don't see on the film with him, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it does. The numbers you have are closest to the numbers. They were pretty small for Corral in particular, correct?
Yeah, they were pretty small. And then I think another confirmation in this is the fact that Sam Howell had the third most amount of attempts of the quarterbacks on here. And obviously Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter, played, were a starter an extra season in there. So they just barely beat out Howell in the attempt department, but Howell had a very nice completion percentage, the highest on this list of 46.3%. Once again, these are throws outside the numbers of more than 10 plus yards down the field there. And also his interception ratio is lower. He's got a nice yards per attempt number in here as well too. So more than anything, what sticks out the most here of these numbers, and that's all they are numbers, is that it provides, I think, confirmation on Corral and Howell, and it also to some degree adds a little bit of confirmation to Desmond Ritter, because the lowest completion percentage of the group here, and also had the most interceptions of the group here. So if you were stat book scouting, there's a red flag in there with Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, and with Corral, you don't want to have the same number of outside number completions as there are Kmarts left in America. There's 3 of them left. I just saw a thing on Twitter. There's only 3 Kmarts left. One just closed down. So I get that, but the question is, the absence of it, does that mean he can't do it or that he just didn't do it is the question. It's not like if he had done it on tape and just objectively struggled doing it, then that would be, I think, to me, even a bigger negative than just the absence or just the limited view of him doing it.
But wait, there's more.
All right, getting the sham wow from Dave.
I can't leave well enough alone.
Yeah, that should be your mantra. That's your mantra.
That put that on my tombstone. He couldn't leave well enough alone, and that's probably going to be the story somewhere in there. He wouldn't leave well enough alone. Straight drop. Look, the beauty about the Steelers having to go back through and us having to pay a lot of attention to the quarterback position, and maybe you can speak to this as well, because I think you maybe last year did a lot more homework on, did a lot more homework on the quarterbacks than I did overall. I feel like I'm doing a better job now more than ever of evaluating the quarterbacks and things that I'm looking for specifically in there and all. And it's causing me to have more questions about certain ones of them. And what has been one of the main questions I've had about Matt Corral kind of throughout these last couple of weeks here is, all right, I see him run the RPOs. I see his throws over the middle of the field. I see the quick release. I see the accuracy, like that. But where are the outside the number throws? And specifically, we talked, I think, recently these last couple of shows about these quarterbacks making this out route. Does a quarterback need to be able to throw the 7 to 15 yard out in the NFL level?
Yeah, I think the elite ones are capable and do it. I don't know if it's a requirement in an offense, but you just don't want anything where your offense feels limited that you can't do something. That's going to hurt you overall.
Because if you can't, teams are going to catch on to that in the NFL level, and they're going to start squeezing the middle of the field on you, are they not?
They are. And I will say I had those concerns with Burrow and he seemed to buck that issue, although we both agree we were surprised by the steps he took last year, coming off the ACL especially. But point well taken.
Where I'm more impressed by what Burrow did in his second year, the main thing I was more surprised with him about was the throws out, with the deep throws in general, and especially the deep throws outside the numbers, man. When you have that kid able to stretch the field like they have, in Jamar Chase, that helps, right? I mean,
Sure.
certainly throwing to guys that can stack corners on the outside helps. And that's one area from what I remember of Burrow's tape coming out of being more impressed with him. Now, here's the thing. I had the numbers pulled on straight drop for quarterbacks in their college career and throwing downfield outside the numbers on the out routes. Now, I know that's pretty specific, but that's the question I've had, right? I mean, that's what I've been talking about, is not so much the out and ups, specifically if I could have drilled this thing from 10 to 15 yards, I would have cut it out, because you don't see many out routes run past 15 yards. You maybe get some at 16 or 17 yards, right? But anyway, my limit, I was limited to drilling it down to 10 to 19 yards down the field on out routes. And no damn wonder I can't find tape on Corral and Willis kind of making these specific kind of throws there. In fact, the stats say Corral's attempted just eight of those, and he's completed just 4 of those for 61 yards. Malik Willis has attempted 11. 6 of those he completed. The most, the thing that sticks out the most about those 11 attempts is 2 of those were intercepted. One of them was against the Coastal Carolina in that bowl game in 2020. And the other one, I believe, was against Louisiana Monroe. And that was a red zone in the end zone interception against Coastal Carolina. Just an ugly decision on Malik's part. It's not that he can't make that throw, it was the decision that he made to make that throw. And the other one was against Louisiana Monroe last season there. But interceptions are interceptions, and you got to research those kind of things there. I got some confirmation, kind of, if you will, on Sam Howell, 26 of 20 on those type of throws. Just very, not bad at all. I mean, completion percentage, 76.9%, adjusted completion percentage of a wow of 80.8%, and a nice average depth of target of 11.1 there. Now, Desmond Ridder, kind of a mixed bag there. A completion percentage of 68%. But he did have 2 interceptions. I did not have time to go research those out over there. But more than anything, I was hoping this would show me what it showed me about Matt Corral overall, and that's the fact that he did not have a lot of those outside number out routes.
Yeah, Dave. No, I think it's a really good study, and you have the numbers dialed in. I think it's basically what you've talked about, what you've seen on tape. But again, the question is it something that Corral simply just did not do, or something that he's not capable of doing? To me, his arm is live, and it's more than enough for the NFL. And just in the way that Willis didn't have many attempts, we know that Willis is certainly capable of making that throw, just didn't do it a ton in that particular thing. Now, was that more of a scheme thing, a receiver thing? There's a lot of, I think, variables at play for why you didn't see that throw a lot. So understand the concern, and it isn't a known overall, but to me, it's not a deal breaker.
And, something else, those stats, is there anything concerning with any of those quarterbacks in any of those stats there? Maybe more so Ridder than anything?
Yeah.
Or do you have any big takeaways from those couple of stats?
I don't know if I have a big takeaway. I think it's all just pieces of the puzzle. So I think it's important information. I'm really glad that you did that. But I try not to be too beholden to any one number, especially with a particularly small sample size.
All right. Now, what about the 3rd and 7 and longer passing stats and the conversion rates of final 2 college seasons? Third down and 7 or more is a crucial down, obviously here. And what I did is I compared the quarterbacks this year, the 5 to the last couple of seasons of first round picks on top of it to find out not only their completion percentage, but their quarterback rate, their first down conversion percentage, and all like that. And atop the list is Joe Burrow that we just talked about. 73 point. Now he only had 26 attempts in total in his final 2 college seasons on 3rd and 7 and longer passing situations there, but he did complete 73.1%. He had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, had a college passing rating of 207.8, had a nice conversion rate overall, 38.5%. I guess when you get to some of these other quarterbacks here, when it comes to this year's class specifically, Sam Howell, another area where Sam Howell quietly impresses there. 65.4% completion percentage, 30.9% conversion rate. You'd like to see that maybe a tad higher versus some of these other quarterbacks here overall, but 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. You go on down. The thing that stuck out the most to me were 2 quarterbacks. Malik Willis with just a 54.5% completion percentage on 3rd and 7 and longer situations here. But he did have a convert when he did connect. He had a 31.8% first down completion percentage overall there. And he also had 5 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 150.2 when it comes to the college calculation of that number. So, that's one of those things that you better go look at the tape and see what happened on those 3rd downs specifically, because there's bad, meaning the 54.5% completion percentage, but the good when it comes to the rest of it. Now, the thing that really stuck out the most is Desmond Ritter's at the bottom of this list, 48.1% completion percentage. That's not even close to the next guy on the list, which is Trevor Lawrence, believe it or not, 54.3%.
Who's the next closest in this class in terms of the completion percentage?
Willis.
Ritter, and then what's the number?
54.5%. And then it jumps up to Justin Herbert at 56.6% there. So even using his own class as an example, by his own class, I'm only talking about the top 5 quarterbacks. I don't know where other quarterback. I didn't go through all the quarterbacks in this year's draft class. I'm just talking about the top 5 here. He's not even close to Willis on this.
Yeah.
We're talking a 6.4% differential in there. His yards per attempt was a measly 6.0 on 3rd and 7 and longer passing. 4 interceptions versus just 3 touchdowns. Conversion and here's a disturbing fact that I think as well too. Just a 22.8% conversion rate when it came to these numbers on top of it there. And then, his quarterback rating, because of the interceptions, obviously played a bigger part in this. And the completion percentage, 100.9, where you think of 100.9 quarterback rating. Well, that's not bad, right? Well, on a college number, it's not good at all, overall, especially comparative speaking. So is there any red flags in this?
Yeah, I think there can be more because you're talking about just a larger sample size in general and a more, broader situational football like 3rd and 7 plus. So, yeah, I think you could weigh that to me a bit more than you can weigh that more particular specific subset of out route type of throws you referenced earlier.
All right. So, once again, I think our own Clayton Eckert's going to be drilling this down further for a post coming up on SteelersDepot.com. But look, tape rules supreme, obviously. But there are some instances where if you watch enough tape, you can kind of predict where some of kind of these numbers are going to go. And I'm getting a lot of confirmation, I think, in my own head when it comes to what I've seen on tape with several of these quarterbacks statistically.
Let me ask you this. Your quarterback rankings are Willis, Pickett, Howell, Corral, Ritter. That was done throughout last week. What are your rankings now? Have they shifted at all? Certainly sounds like Sam Howell is coming up pretty well in some of these studies you're doing.
Yeah, look, I'm losing confidence in Kenny Pickett by the day.
Now, I will say in some of the numbers with him, third down, red zone in particular, he has shined more than any other quarterback in some of the stuff I know Clayton has done. If you want to look at just kind of the numbers of it all.
Right. But I mean, you just look at his overall completion percentage on these 3rd and 7 numbers. I mean, it's right, kind of right in the middle of the pack there. You'd like to see his first down completion, first down conversion. And yeah, I think just when you start looking at the entire package with Kenny Pickett, the outside the numbers stuff, the deep down the field stuff, now, once again, I think Kenny Pickett, and it's hard not to think this, I think when it comes to quarterbacks that are in this draft class, I think he's the one most ready to hit the NFL field now. When it comes to upside of this class in quarterbacks overall, Malik Willis, to me, has the highest ceiling, but maybe the lowest, lowest floor, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. There, but right behind him, I have Howell and Corral as far as ceiling improvement goes. When it comes to Pickett and Desmond Ritter now at this point, from what I've seen, what you see is what you get.
So it doesn't sound like Pickett's going to stay in that 2 spot for you.
I mean, when it comes to spending a first round pick on these guys, and what the Steelers needs are and NFL needs are, to me, I find it hard to have Ritter and Pickett on my list.
So
at all?
Okay. No, I understand. So what quarterbacks would you take in the first round? Willis, it sounds like that's an obvious one to you.
I would take Willis potentially. I would take Howell, knowing that the Steelers are probably going to take one. Howell to me is that later round, first round quarterback that you don't have a lot invested in, that you see kind of what happens with, but I do think there is something to Howell as far as upside goes. I also believe there is, upside to some degree of Corral right behind Howell there. So if I were to suggest that the Steelers have first round quarterbacks that maybe they could potentially take, it would be those 3. And probably in that ranking of look, Willis has been number 1 on my board. Really, technically, he's the guy. But then it goes Howell and Corral. If you select Pickett, then I think what you see is what you get with him. And man, there's no way whatsoever I could recommend, from what I've seen on tape with Ritter, and suggesting Ritter being the pick.
No, I understand. I'm with you on Ritter for sure. With Howell, I understand you're not advocating to trade up for him, but if you put a first round pick in, and that's a heavy investment. I think you said something a moment ago about, you're not investing a later first round pick. You're not going to invest a lot in, but a first round pick's a heavy investment no matter how you slice it. And just the fact that he would be the guy.
I'm not to the point on how where I would be banging the table to trade up for him. I'll tell you that.
Well, I think by your logic, then you don't want to take him at 20 either, because if you're not banging the table to trade up for him, then you shouldn't be banging the table to draft him at 20.
But I could see the Steelers taking him.
No, I understand. Yeah, but I'm just saying from your personal perspective, what quarterbacks, if you, Dave Bryan, became GM tomorrow, would you take in the first round?
Well, once again, I am more intrigued with Malik Willis, and this is not saying that Malik Willis will be the thing, but if there was one I was going to bet on, it'd be Malik Willis.
Right, but is he the only one?
Yes.
I know Willis. Okay, so Howell, Corral, not good enough to you to reach that 20th overall pick threshold.
Right.
Okay, now I understand, and that's the quandary of this quarterback class. That's why it's the quote unquote weaker class. For me, the 2 guys that I would bang the table for is Willis and Corral, and I could I can see it with Howell, but the fact that I'm kind of like him hawing about it is not a great sign for my overall willingness to take him in the first round.
I think the thing that's the hardest thing to get past Howell primarily is that 2021 tape not being comparative to his 2020 tape.
Yeah, no, I understand. So that's the quarterback discussion.
But if you were just to watch, if you did not have the 2021 tape to go on, and I know it's impossible to speak on this, but you know, do you sense that you might be higher on Howell if there was no 2021 tape?
Probably. I mean, before the 2021 season began, he was believed to be the number one quarterback taken in this year's draft. Like he was considered the top guy. So probably.
I think Steeler fans struggle more than anything in general with the old Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield comparisons.
Yeah, which I don't think are even that valid. Like,
right.
I get it, but again, personality-wise, they could not be more different. And even in terms of the way they play, like, I think Howell's a thicker body. I don't know. I think people just say, well, they're short and they have decent arms, and so he's Baker. Like, I don't know. It just seems lazy.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what most of the people that fans are lazy when it comes to this stuff. They latch on to somebody, and then that's it. That's the narrative, and they defend. They die on unnecessary hills defending some of these guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's the fans. I think the analysts get lazy with the comps because one comp comes up and everyone runs with it and no one wants to do homework on more comps. I mean, fans only have so much time. They can't sit there and watch prospects all day like we can. So I just think there's a narrative that comes up from an analyst perspective that really permeates across the fan base.
When I watch Matt Corral, I absolutely hate doing comparisons.
Why do you hate comparisons?
I just hate them. I hate them because on players that the Steelers don't draft, I once they get into the NFL, their NFL tape becomes more of a concern to me than their college tape was. I hit the delete button on the hard drive in my head for the most part when it comes to the college tape and remembrance of it. But
yeah, well, comps can be NFL comps too. They don't have to be. They can be college, I think, or what you think an NFL player he compares to.
I think when I see Matt Corral, I don't know what it is. I think Marcus Mariota.
Okay, I know Ritter's gotten the Mariota comp. I think Jonathan comped Mariota too. I get that though. I dig it.
Because of kind of that, heavy. Quick, RPO kind of ability to run. The more I watch Matt Corral, the more I think Marcus Mariota.
Now, is that supposed to be a compliment or not?
Didn't you term them as I don't see the David Carr in them.
The Derek Carr? I went Carr.
Derek Carr.
I went Carr partially because the body type is similar in terms of height, weight, and then the release, the quickness of the release was with me on Carr. And then also just in terms of like Corral being like a top 10 quarterback at a ceiling, but never like a top 5, top 3 quarterback.
Well, look, a long story short, and it's been this, and I think the post on Steelers Depot today shows it. I mean, everybody all of us are all over. I can't wait to talk to Devin Jackson and Owen, on Wednesday to get kind of their updated takes on this class as well too. More, I know Owen spends a lot of time on defensive backs, but there's certain things that I want to ask Owen about. Man, do quarterbacks really have to be able to throw this out, route? And where is he on things on his study and Devin the same thing? Because I know Devin devours tape, as much as anybody on our staff, So, but to me, it's always been Malik Willis and these 4 other guys.
Yeah. And of course, Willis has his own problems and is certainly no sure thing. There is, of course, no sure thing in the NFL draft. So,
but anyway, I'm trying to, I've watched enough tape now on this. I'm just trying to pick out certain aspects of them statistically and then going back and matching up the tape to them.
Right. Well, that's what we do. We marry the tape and the stats and see what it comes out as. All right, Dave, anything else you wanted to talk about in today's show? I think we covered all the big things.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, Dave, let's get to Reid emos and close out today's show.
All right. Let me sort this by the email here real quick. Antonio Robinson. No, I'm not going to answer any questions about Haskins' contract. Sorry. Let's wait a while on that. Yeah. Taylor Carpenter writes in, trading back in the draft. Excellent work this year on the draft coverage. I've been listening to the podcast without missing an episode for several years. I have to say this year's draft coverage has been second to none. Hey, that's what we like to hear,
Thank you.
Taylor. My question is, do you think there is a chance that the Steelers may not be as high on this year's crop of quarterbacks as many believe, aside from Willis, and may actually surprise us and trade back in the first round? He says, I could see a scenario where Willis, Howell, Pickett, and Ritter all get selected prior to pick 20. It could be that the Steelers like Corral, but have a late first round, early second round grade on him. They could decide to move back, pick up a third or fourth selection and draft Corral, or insert whichever quarterback later in the first round. The Steelers do not end up moving up to get Willis, which seems even less likely now post the Eagles-Saints trade. This is about the most palatable scenario I see, where the Steelers select a quarterback not named Willis in a first round. What % chance do you put on the Steelers trading back in the first? And if they did, it did not select a quarterback, holy moly, you think you got enough hypotheticals in there, Taylor? Taylor, to be honest with you, your email sounds like a what would Taylor do? It seems like there's a lot of Taylor bias mixed in here. It's impossible, I think, to kind of predict what is and isn't going to happen. Look, you can't discount they've gone to all these quarterback pro days. It sounds like they're going to bring all these quarterbacks in for pre-draft visits. You go back to what Tomlin basically said at the owners' meeting. They're going. Who is going? I'm going to be pretty shocked they do not draft a quarterback in the first round. Period. End of story.
Yeah, I think that's certainly what the odds are highly favoring right now. It's just unpredictable to know who, and when you pick a 20, there's just so much waiting and so much unknown.
And if they don't, to me, there's going to stand pat, pick the best player that they have on their board, non-quarterback at that point. I give it, I don't know, a 1% chance they'll trade back.
Yeah, I think the odds of trading down are very low. Colbert said in the past, when they trade down in the first, really trade down at all, it's because there's X amount of players correlating to the spots moving down that they would be willing to take. So they move down 4 spots. There are 4 guys they'd be very comfortable taking. If they don't have that, then they're not going to trade down. They've only traded down in the first round once. That was in 01. 16-19 did get Casey Hampton out of that. So I think the odds of that are pretty low, much higher that they're either going to move up or trade up even into the back half of the last couple of picks of the first round. After taking someone at 20, that seems more likely. And then the idea of trading down but still getting Corral, I get it, but it just feels weird to be like, we love this guy, we think he's a franchise guy, and also we traded down and decided to take the risk of like 3 more picks to try to get a third round pick. So it feels a weird thing to do, is to trade down and then get a quarterback.
Here's where I am on the quarterback position and the Steelers in this draft specifically. The only players I can't see them drafting, just from my own study in all this, is Ritter or Pickett in the first round. Those are the only 2 really I can't see them taking. And Ritter and Pickett more so because I don't see them going up to get him, and I don't see Pickett lasting on the board long enough to that spot. So, could Pickett fall? Yeah, absolutely. I think there's still an outside chance of that happening. But in my mind right now, my mind is telling me that it's going to be one of Willis, Howell, or Corral in my mind.
I'm going to be more wishy-washy about it and say I could really see them take all these quarterbacks. I'm not sure what is compelling me to think from the Steelers' point of view that they wouldn't take a Pickett or a Ritter. I think there are arguments you can make for or against really all these top 5 guys.
He goes on to write, he's super bummed we won't have Dave T this year. His episode was always the one I look forward to the most around draft time. Any thoughts on having someone else that is a draft insider like Dave T was on the show to bounce prospects off of? Yeah, we have our own people, to be honest with you. And you look at some of these other quote unquote, what is a draft insider, Alex?
It means everything and nothing at the same time. It's a meaningless title anyone can apply to somebody.
Right. Somebody listening want to help me out of what is a draft insider. The reason why we had Dave T on is because Dave T watched the tape and he had so much instant recall knowledge on so many prospects, plus kind of had a general, a close understanding of the Steelers and what they would do. Dave T was kind of unique in his own way, and there will never be another one like him because of it. If you want to listen to guys talk about the draft, obviously the Daniel Jeremiahs are out there. This Jordan Reid on ESPN seems like the new age up and coming kind of guy that you can trust, has watched the tape. That Matt Miller, I wouldn't give you 2 cents for him, be honest with you, because it's shown time in and time out that Matt Miller guy does not watch the tape, the necessary tape and all. So throw him out. Greg Cosell, I will listen to anything Greg Cosell puts out, but Greg Cosell will tell you that he doesn't pay any attention to team needs or mock drafts or anything along those. His is all about the tape. So if we were to have anybody on, quote unquote, draft insider, mainstream moving forward, maybe a guy like Greg Cosell. And to me, I'd rather have our own guys on, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I understood what the question was asked about, like analyst, like an outside person, the way that Dave T was. But
Alex is pretty good at this stuff, guys. I don't know if you guys have figured this out yet, but Alex Kozora is actually pretty good at this stuff.
Well, I think it's my voice that makes people want to listen to something else, which is understandable, and I would agree. But yeah, obviously there is no finding another Dave T in terms of like who Dave T was, because he was just one of a kind person, and still so sorely missed. But yeah, I think we've had other people on just from the Depot crew, whether that's Jonathan, Tom, and Tyler, and Josh, and obviously we'll have Owen and Devin on. I think getting their insights been tremendous, and the feedback's been outstanding in terms of people who love those roundtable episodes that have gotten great listenership and just feedback in general. So I think that's kind of going to be our lane, is expanding the Depot circle as opposed to bringing in true outside people.
Look, some of the guys that we have on on staff on these roundtables now, they watch a lot of tape, and they've done this for a while, and they understand the Steelers too. So I think that's a good marriage of all of it together. But he says, keep up the good work. If he hasn't already, tell Alex to check out Bumble for the online dating. Have you used Bumble yet?
I have used Bumble, but Bumble's where the girls talk to you. They don't talk to Alex too much. So I don't use Bumble. I'm regretting this commentary already.
Bring it.
I'm regretting this even more when you say this kind of stuff. I'm back on Hinge over the last couple of weeks. I tried to talk to this one girl about Sidney Crosby versus Malkin, and I made a pro Malkin comment, and she unmatched me. So that was the wrong answer. I should have stuck with Crosby, apparently. So that didn't go anywhere. I know. Well, I thought I could just be a good conversation starter, like who has the better shot, Gino or Sid? And I said, I think, Sid's a better player, but Gino has like the harder shot. And that was the wrong answer, apparently.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
All right. So we're back on
Edge. But I was going to call it Edge because you're never going to remember Hinge. So
Hinge. Okay.
Hinge.
All right. Yeah. And how does the conversation, do you start the conversation on those? Do you have to be matched up with somebody first, or?
Yeah, you can send them a message. Usually it's the guy talking to the girl first. It can go either way, but then the girl would have to accept the message essentially. And that's how the conversation would begin.
Okay. So in other words, they have to follow you on the Edge first, right?
They'll get a message saying with my message, and if they want to match it, then they can match and start a conversation, or they can ignore it if they don't want to talk to you.
I'm trying to think how an opening conversation, because it's not a bar, what I'm used to. Yeah. I wouldn't know how to start a process like that. So I don't know what.
I don't either, apparently.
Like a pickup line. Like what's the
don't get me any
and you can't use any with you. There's no movies or I guess you could talk about The Bachelor, right?
Yeah, I've tried that a little bit. It hasn't gone. I also have not been watching the last several seasons, but it doesn't generally go well.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, so you've checked out Bumble, but you're back to the, Edge, Hinge.
Yes.
Unhinged. All right.
Okay.
Let us move along here.
Please.
Tony Verdream. After listening to you guys last 2 weeks, I'm convinced they will draft Willis if he is sitting there at 20. He says, you've convinced me. Tony, well, first and foremost, hopefully we're not convincing anybody to do anything with this. We're just trying to give a lot of opinions in here. But I wonder if you guys agree with me that they just might scrap that plan if a couple of players unexpectedly fell, and realistically, as in not even Evan Neal, even if Willis was still there. I actually don't think they would take Jordan. He says, I actually don't think they would take Jordan Davis over Willis, but I'm thinking if Hamilton, Stingley, or Jameson Williams happen to fall, they might. Was wondering if you had a list of guys you think they might take over Willis at 20 if they unexpectedly fell. That's another one of those uber hypothetical. Look, I think Mike Tomlin really likes Jordan Davis. I think that's a guy. You've really talked a lot about Hamilton lately, Alex, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Listen, who knows is the answer to that. I'll put it this way. If Willis is there at 20, I think they take him. Right. Similar in the way I thought if Najee Harris is going to be there at 24 last year, he was the guy. I'll put it that way.
I am the same boat there, and I think people look to us to be able to, as much as we try to predict, or try to point people in the direction we think the Steelers might go with certain prospects in this thing. And you'll never not get me to believe that really Kevin Colbert doesn't go into the draft room with like an index card in his pocket with like only 25 names written on it. I mean, you are never not going to be able to convince me of that. But within that, I think a lot of people, expect us to give them, the two names, especially in a situation like this. And it's impossible to think if, I do think if a guy like Jordan Davis fell down to him, if Willis is off the board, I think there is a chance that Jordan Davis could be that guy, because I don't think they think Jordan Davis is going to fall that far. And I really, really think they like Malik Willis in this class. But within all that, it goes back to the biases in my own head right now is the fact that I find it hard to imagine this team coming out of the first round with a quarterback.
Right. And the question I wrestle with the most of, if they want to take a quarterback, if they do take a quarterback and it's not Willis, who is that next guy? And really, you could convince me of any of those other four names, the Ritter, the Pickett, Howell, or Corral. And I think all four of those could conceivably be their next guy on the list.
Right. And look, I mean, my thought about this quarterback class is with them specifically is I don't want to think about them sitting at 20 and drafting a quarterback and thinking, man, where was the conviction? You know what I'm saying? And I know a lot of people are saying, oh no, we don't want them to trade up. We want them to stand, we don't want to give up any future draft, anything to be able to draft one of these quarterbacks in this class. I understand that feeling from the fan side of things, but on the flip side, I just seeing what has happened in past drafts at 20 and the type of quarterbacks that have gone that far, to me, makes me think that, well, if there's one quarterback that you like in this class, then just go up and go get him,
Yeah. So it's a lot of uncertainty there.
Several biases working in this. John writes in, Dear Dave and Alex, as always, thanks for all you do and being the best analyst and most entertaining podcast across Steelers Nation. This week's roundtable sessions were great. They absolutely were. I really got a lot out of them. He says, as requested, based on my assessment of your collective inputs regarding quarterbacks over the past several weeks, he says, I would offer the following. He says, I am really concerned that the six of you who religiously study tape and are all objective cannot come even close to a consensus regarding the presumed top 5 candidates, perhaps with the exception of Malik Willis, but the level of passionate agreement on him is still not definitive or convincing, he says. As a result, I would definitely not trade up to draft any of the candidates. Further, he says, I'm convinced I'm not convinced any are worthy of a first-round pick. He says even Malik. A couple of months ago, you had a guest on the show represented an emerging data analytics platform, and this guy was really bearish on Malik Willis. He characterized him as a very high risk. Nevertheless, based on my listening and reading of the Steelers Depot, I rank the quarterbacks as Corral, Howell, Willis, Pickett, and Ritter. Go for the gusto and grab Carson in round 3, he says. Roll the dice in a weak class. Lastly, I respectfully point out constructive feedback. Jonathan may have a career as a politician, he says. I find that he has difficulty answering straightforward questions and backing up his position with confidence. He is a great commentator, but he would be even more effective. Some word I think he misspelling here. Pushing his chips in the center of the table, I guess is what he meant, based in his research and conclusions. I've never viewed Jonathan as not fully endorsing his opinion on certain players, right? Have you?
I think he backs it up really, really well. I'm not sure what it was a particular comment the reader's thinking of, but no, I think Jonathan has always been strong with his convictions. I mean, yeah, I think, he defended Ritter and likes Howell more than some other people do and isn't as big of a fan of Corral. So I think we had those really good conversations on, what was that, Friday show.
Right. And look, as far as the quarterback classes go, I think there's, the fact that there's, in other years, there's been more, I think, defined top 1 or 2 overall, but then past that, there's still a lot of conversation of like who's 3, 4, and 5, right?
Definitely. And those 1 and 2 were like literal 1 and 2 picks in the draft. Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick. So even if you had that clearly defined number 1 guy, Pittsburgh wouldn't have a chance at getting him. So I think anytime you're picking in the 20s trying to find a quarterback, it's going to be pretty debated.
Right. When you get past first 2, probably in most draft classes, you're going to run into, I think it's just amplified this year because we have spent so much time on for obvious reasons, this draft class, right? So it gets amplified a lot more and especially with this not being great and there being questions at the top and they're probably some of these guys not going to go more likely not going to go in the first 2 picks. That is what led to be the opinion of John there.
Yeah, and with Carson Strong, I mean, if that knee wasn't a mess, I could live with the mobility or lack thereof, but like that knee is I just don't think you can trust it.
One from Grant Kinney here says Steelers are lying to themselves. Nothing gets me more excited for the NFL draft than hearing you guys talk prospects and having the other men on. He says one takeaway I would have from all the quarterback discussion is that Willis is one of the only ones that could become a franchise quarterback. Do you guys consider it more likely that if he is gone, they will take their next guy by moving up or taking him at 20. He says, my fear is that Willis is gone. They will feel pressure to get a quarterback and take their next best quarterback prospect at 20. If Willis is gone, I'd rather them take the best prospect available at 20. He says, my overall thought suggestion is whether or not you guys think the Steelers will have too much bias and projection on these quarterbacks because of their need. This is something that I struggle with this process and this class specifically here. And the fact of the matter is that they're probably going to grade this thing as them having first round grades or not on players. And they're unlikely to fulfill my needs of showing the conviction to go up to get a guy as opposed to letting the draft come to them and saying, well, we have a first round grade on a quarterback here and that's where we're going to take him. Does that make sense? They're not here to please Dave. And after the fact of saying, well, we have conviction in this guy. We had a first round grade on him, but there were 2 or 3 of them. So we were fine with whatever fell to us at 20, which is my biggest fear of happening.
Yeah, or it could just be a projection of there's this guy we really like, and we don't think he's going to go ahead of us based on what we're hearing, what we know, and the trade chatter and things like that. And so we just feel like we don't have to trade up. So we're not going to give up additional capital we don't believe we need to give up to go get this guy. It's really hard to answer these questions. Like I said, we're all just really guessing.
Yeah. pull back the curtain, let them see the guest machine in there. All right, I think that's a good jumping off point here with questions, and kind of an unfortunate, weird episode today. Obviously, having to talk about the tragedy, with Dwayne Haskins, on Saturday, and then having to kind of put that past us, and then have a second half of the show there. So hopefully people understand kind of the way the progression happened there, right, Alex?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring some normalcy to a very difficult time, and obviously the Haskins story's by far the most important thing. I wanted to dedicate plenty of time at the start of the show, but then also just get to talk about just the Steelers and take people's minds off of Haskins in particular, and just talk about the draft a little bit, and just try to process it the best that we all can.
Right, absolutely. And all right, we'll end it there. No live stream tonight, right, Alex?
Yeah, no live stream tonight. That was planned, but yeah, we'll have our live stream next Monday.
All right. So in the meantime, we'll be back on Wednesday, and hopefully have Devin Jackson and Owen Straley on for another exciting roundtable session there. So in the meantime, make sure you get by SteelersDepot.com and hopefully reading the great content up there and chiming in the comment section there. Follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free version for $25. You can have a version of that instantaneously for you. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.